Commander Jax Var, a seasoned veteran of the HFY hegemony, watched with grim satisfaction as the lone Terran vessel, the scout ship Stardust, drifted lifelessly in the void. Its shields had failed under a barrage of plasma fire, its engine sputtered into silence. A single life pod ejected, a tiny, defiant speck against the vastness of space. "Retrieve the occupant," Var commanded, his voice a guttural rasp over the comms. "A live Terran specimen. This will be informative." Inside the life pod was Captain Ava Rostova, a human who had faced down horrors the galaxy barely dared to whisper about. She emerged from the wreckage, blood trickling from a cut above her eye, but her gaze was steady, unwavering, even as a squad of heavily armed HFY warriors surrounded her. She was outnumbered, outgunned, and alone, yet a flicker of something unsettlingly resilient burned in her eyes. The HFY hegemony was a ruthless, efficient empire built on conquest and the subjugation of lesser species. They prided themselves on their meticulous intelligence gathering, their strategic brilliance, and their ability to break the will of any foe. They had faced species of immense physical strength, cunning intellect, and formidable psychic power, and had, without fail, found their breaking point. Humans, however, remained an enigma. They were physically unimpressive, lacked overt psionic abilities, and their technology, while advanced, was not inherently superior. Yet, they fought with a desperate tenacity that defied all HFY tactical projections. Capturing a live human was, for Jax Var, an opportunity to finally unravel the Terran resilience mystery. Ava was brought to a pristine, sterile interrogation chamber on Var's flagship, the Oblivion. The room was designed to isolate, to disorient, to magnify every discomfort. Var himself entered, his multifaceted eyes studying her with cold, calculating interest. "Terran, identify yourself," he demanded, his voice translated perfectly into her language. Ava merely spat on the polished floor. "You can call me Captain," she replied, her voice raspy but firm. Var's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Feisty. Good. We appreciate a challenge. Tell us about your fleet deployments, your defensive protocols, your weaknesses." Ava just smiled, a thin, humorless curve of her lips. "You'll be waiting a long time." The initial interrogations yielded nothing. Var, impatient, moved to physical methods. Ava was subjected to pain stimuli designed to exploit human neurology, to break down her physical resistance. Sonic disruptors, thermal shock, electroneural feedback, each was administered with scientific precision, monitored by HFY medical droids. Her body screamed, convulsed, but her mind remained a fortress. She would clench her teeth, bite through her lip, but never scream, never plead, never offer anything but defiant silence. The HFY scientists were perplexed. Her physical endurance was within expected Terran parameters, yet her pain threshold seemed unnaturally high. Var then introduced psychic interrogators, specialists from a subjugated species known for their mental penetration. These psions, known as the Mentari, could probe minds, extract memories, and even implant suggestions. The lead Mentari, a shimmering, amorphous being, attempted to breach Ava's mental defenses. It recoiled almost instantly, its form flickering violently. "Her mind, it's a maelstrom," the Mentari rasped, its voice trembling. "Chaotic. Unyielding. Like trying to hold on to a hurricane. We cannot gain purchase. There are, walls within walls, self-erasing fragments. It's not just shielded, it's designed to resist capture." Ava merely blinked, a slight tremor in her hands the only sign of the invisible battle. Frustration mounted. Var ordered Ava to be placed in an environmental chamber, designed to push human biological limits. Rapid fluctuations in atmospheric pressure, temperature extremes, carefully calculated periods of oxygen deprivation, and nutrient withdrawal. Weeks bled into months. Ava grew gaunt, her skin pale, her movements slow. But her eyes remained defiantly bright. She adapted, her body clinging to life with desperate resilience, her mind retreating into an impenetrable core. She hummed old Terran folk songs to herself, a soft, rebellious sound in the sterile confines of her prison. A junior HFY scientist, observing Ava's unwavering resolve, noticed a pattern. She rarely spoke, but when she did, it was usually a soft, almost imperceptible murmur, a name. Kaylin. The scientist, a specialist in psychological profiling, reported this anomaly. "Commander, the Terran does not break under physical or mental duress. But she repeatedly murmurs this designation. It may be a critical weakness. A bond mate, perhaps? A family member?" Var's multifaceted eyes gleamed. "Excellent. We will exploit this bond. Bring her the standard psychological manipulation array." Ava was placed in a new chamber. Holographic projectors sprang to life, displaying terrifyingly realistic simulations. She watched, horrified, as simulated images of Kaylin, her dear friend and fellow archivist, were tortured, mutilated, and finally, executed, again and again, in an endless loop. Then came images of her homeworld, Earth, engulfed in plasma fire, her people screaming, dying. The HFY expected her to collapse, to beg, to finally break. But Ava just stared, tears streaming down her face, her body racked with silent sobs. Yet, through the agony, her gaze hardened. "You lie," she whispered, her voice raw. "Kaylin would never break. And neither would Earth. You don't understand us." Var grew increasingly agitated. This human was an anomaly unlike any he had ever encountered. Every known method of breaking a sentient mind had failed. Physical pain only hardened her resolve. Mental probes were repelled by a chaotic, unyielding will. Psychological torture, designed to break her spirit through the destruction of what she loved, only strengthened her defiance. "What are these creatures?" he clicked, slamming a limb on his control panel. "They have no fear. No self-preservation instinct beyond the physical. There must be a breaking point." His scientists had no answers. Months turned into a year. Ava was a living ghost, but she was still living. She had not broken. In the depths of her despair, a small, subtle act of defiance grew. During her exercise periods in the sterile chamber, she began to meticulously, almost imperceptibly, chip away at a loose floor tile. A tiny, insignificant act, but it was her act. It was control. It was a secret. And in that secret, she found a sliver of hope, a reminder that she was still herself, still fighting, even if only against a single, stubborn tile. Just as Var was on the verge of declaring the human experiment a failure, a new development occurred. A human fleet, small but heavily armed, appeared at the edge of HFY space. They didn't open fire. They didn't threaten. Instead, they sent a single, clear message: "We are here for Captain Ava Rostova. You have one cycle to release her unharmed. There will be no negotiations. There will be no compromise. There will only be her return." The message repeated, a cold, unwavering demand. Var scoffed. A bluff. They would not risk war for one prisoner. What Var didn't know was that Kaylin Vance, the archivist Ava had murmured about, was now Admiral Kaylin Vance, head of UEDF intelligence. He had tracked Ava relentlessly, piecing together fragments of data from the Stardust's last transmissions. And he knew his people. He knew Ava. "They don't understand, do they?" Kaylin mused to his bridge crew. "They think one human is expendable. They think we have a price. We don't." His ships remained silent, motionless, a white-knuckled fist clenched in the void. The cycle passed. Var, confident in his assessment of Terran weakness, ignored the ultimatum. He decided to send a message of his own, a demonstration of force against a non-critical human outpost, to show them the futility of their defiance. But before his fleet could move, Kalen's ships surged forward. Not in a traditional attack formation, but in a precise, surgical strike. They targeted HFY supply lines, communications relays, and unshielded asteroid mining operations. Not to destroy, but to cripple. To demonstrate capability, not just intent. Var was stunned. The Terrans were not engaging his warships. They were systematically dismantling his infrastructure. His supply depots exploded, his asteroid miners went dark, his outlying communication network went silent. And the human fleet remained just out of range of his main battle group, hitting and fading with uncanny precision. They were not fighting a war for territory. They were fighting a war for one individual, and they were willing to bring the hegemony to its knees to get her back. The cost of keeping Ava Rostova was rapidly outweighing any potential intelligence gain. Kalen sent another message, this time a direct broadcast to Var's flagship. It was a single image, a panoramic view of Earth's vast, ancient museum fleet, the very ships that had annihilated the Forlag Imperium years ago. The image lingered for a moment, then faded, replaced by Kalen's calm voice. We understand that your intelligence classified these vessels as obsolete. We assure you, Commander, they are not. They are merely reserved for conflicts where compromise is no longer an option. Do not mistake our restraint for weakness. The unspoken threat was clear: release Ava, or face an enemy unbound by any rules. Var stared at the image of the museum ships. He had dismissed them, as his grand strategist Thar had dismissed them. He had based his entire assessment of humanity on their current military doctrine, on their current adherence to galactic conventions. He had forgotten that beneath the civility, beneath the rules, lay a species capable of unfathomable ferocity, a species that once fought wars of total annihilation. He saw it now in Ava's unwavering eyes, in Kalen's calm threat, in the systematic dismantling of his empire for the sake of one prisoner. Humanity didn't break. It simply escalated. Var, a strategist who knew when he was truly defeated, capitulated. He ordered Ava Rostova released. She was brought to a neutral rendezvous point, a frail, gaunt figure, but with that same defiant spark in her eyes. Kalen was there, waiting. He helped her onto his shuttle, his gaze sweeping over her emaciated form. He didn't speak of rescue, he simply held her hand, a silent acknowledgement of her endurance. The HFY watched, bewildered. They had seen prisoners broken, ransomed, or executed. They had never seen an entire empire brought to its knees for one. Back on Earth, Ava recovered slowly. Her body healed, but the scars on her mind would last forever. Yet, she was not broken. She told her story, her unwavering resolve inspiring countless others. She spoke of the HFY's attempts to break her spirit, and how her only thought was of Kalen, of Earth, and of the fundamental human refusal to yield. They didn't understand, she said to Admiral Lee. They thought breaking meant extracting information or gaining a confession. They never understood that for us, breaking means giving up hope. And we never, ever do that. The HFY hegemony, still reeling from the unexpected blow to its infrastructure and its pride, retreated from Terran space. The incident became a cautionary tale across the galaxy. Empires that had once dismissed humans as physically weak or militarily predictable now understood a deeper, more terrifying truth. Humans didn't break. They didn't have a breaking point in the conventional sense. They had a resilience, a stubbornness, a refusal to yield that transcended physical pain, mental torture, or even existential threat. To take one human prisoner was not to gain leverage, it was to invite an unyielding, relentless, and potentially catastrophic response. The HFY's attempts to find humanity's weakness had, ironically, revealed its greatest strength. It wasn't their technology, their tactics, or their numbers. It was their indomitable spirit, their unwavering belief in each other, and their profound, almost irrational refusal to surrender hope. They never broke. And in a galaxy filled with species that eventually yielded, that was the most terrifying, and perhaps the most inspiring, discovery of all. The universe learned that day, if you take one human prisoner, you don't just capture an individual, you ignite an unyielding fire that will burn until they are free.